right. Welcome to the live stream. I'm waiting on Ashley. She is about to put our second oldest to bed. So give us just a couple minutes. I had a few technical difficulties with the streaming software, but we'll get started in just a moment. All right. I'm going to go ahead and get started for real now. Can anybody who's currently watching please type in the little comments section and let me know that you can see me and hear me? I guess nobody has joined. We had several people viewing when I didn't have anything going on. So let me pull it up on a device and hopefully I can hear myself. I apologize if there's going to be some weird echoing or anything. Ah! Foos Rush said yes! Excellent. Good to know that the video and audio are working. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. All right. So, as I mentioned just a moment ago, Ashley is currently putting a child to bed. And she should be joining in just a few minutes. So, first of all, I want to thank everybody, all one of you, for joining and watching right now. Hopefully, others will join momentarily. And, of course, this is being recorded and will be able to be viewed later on, but watching it live, you get the advantage of typing in the chat bar and actually getting a real-time response. So that's one of the fun things about doing these live chats. Alrighty. So if I'm looking off screen like this, I've got a bunch of notes so that I don't really forget anything and I kind of stay on track. So I apologize. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm just following my notes here. Okay, so we are going to talk about our experience starting a small farm and some of the advice we would give our past selves if we could go back in time and do things differently. Most everything we discuss will apply to anyone who's wanting to homestead as well as people who are trying to start a farm. And we'll go into the differences between a farm and a homestead in just a moment for anybody curious. We definitely encourage people to type in the little chat area because we would love to hear what you have to say, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Or if you need clarification or just want a little bit more detail, we'll slow down and answer those questions for you. One thing that's really exciting that I want to talk about before we get really dive into this is that we are currently in the process of writing a book. So the title that we're going with, which may or may not change, is Foodie Farmers, A Culinary Journey from Farm to Table. So this book is going to be a little bit autobiographical, but we're also going to talk about farming and homesteading and basically why you should be able to, or why you should grow your own food, or if you're not going to grow your own food, at least connect with a local farm who is trustworthy and actually follows good regenerative farming practices. And we're going to be talking about our farm specifically and how we raise different animals and how we grow different types of crops in ways that will benefit people who are even doing this on a very small urban scale. So we'll give you advice on how to grow, at least for 1 or 2 people versus us trying to feed a family of 6, as well as providing food for our local community. And on top of that, it's also a cookbook. So we're going to be talking about, for example, we'll have one section about how we raise our pigs and how we do rotational grazing and the benefits of doing that and why we chose the breeds that we did. And then after we discuss that topic, then we're going to have a lot of different recipes that have pork as the main feature of the dish. So we're pretty excited about that. We've gotten the introduction written, and we have the outline for the entire book, what all the chapters are going to be about, and the recipes that we're going to include. We've been doing a little bit of behind-the-scenes stuff, getting ready for photos for the book. So we're really excited about that. We're actually going to be launching a Kickstarter on July 1st. So be on the lookout for that. We'll definitely be blasting that all over social media and our YouTube channel. So now that I have gotten that out of the way, let's go ahead and first talk about the difference between a farm and a homestead. Why did we decide to start a farm? Well, we actually have a video about that. So rather than going over that again, just refer back to that video when this is over. So the difference between a farm and a homestead is that a farm is a for-profit business, whereas a homestead is about a family or small community that is raising animals and growing crops in order to be self-sufficient. Now, you can definitely have a farm and then consume the products that you produce and be self-sufficient, but ultimately you're a for-profit business as well. And luckily, the tax code allows farm owners to deduct anything that you consume, either immediate family of the people who run the farm or even the employees. So it's like a 100% tax write-off to eat the food that you grow. So you can expense all of your seeds and your animals and all that stuff and enjoy the literal and figurative fruits of your labor. So we will be talking about some of the pros and cons in just a little while about starting a farm versus just homesteading. So definitely stick around towards the end of this because that's when we'll start talking about that. Any questions before we move on? There's a little bit of a lag sometimes, so I'll give it just a second. No? Okay. So we will go into a few of the details as to why we wanted to start a farm. First of all was that we wanted to be our own bosses and, start a business and, create a legacy and I have a culinary arts degree and food service management background, and really didn't want to open up a restaurant because we have 4 kids, and I didn't want to be away from home for 100+ hours a week while trying to run a restaurant. So we decided to start a farm instead, because even though we work a lot of hours and we work every day, we do it from home, and we're able to pause to pick up kids from the bus stop, make meals for them, and we're able to kind of, create our own schedule. And really the only thing that we have to adhere to is when we have the farmer's market, or when we have like a pig scheduled for the butcher or something along those lines. But, those are, pretty, well, the farmer's market's a steady thing, so we always know that's going to happen and when it's going to happen. And then scheduling an animal for the butcher is something that's on the calendar for months in advance, so we're always able to plan around that. So another good reason that we started a farm is the self-sufficiency aspect, because we like growing healthy and delicious food, because you can't find the things that we grow in the grocery store. Yes, you can find pork. Yes, you can find eggs. Yes, you can find chicken and vegetables and fruits. But you can't find those things that aren't loaded with lots of chemicals or hormones or anything like that. So, for example, the produce that we grow, we do not use any chemical fertilizers or pesticides, fungicides, or anything like that. We use compost, water, and sunshine. And when we pick things, they are actually ripe and ready to be picked, because we are going to be selling them at the farmer's market either the following day or within the next couple days. So we don't have to worry about picking things before they're ripe so that they travel well. When you actually allow a fruit to ripen on the plant, you not only get much better flavor, but you also get more of the nutrients from the plant that you're just not getting when you buy things from the grocery store. So anytime you cut even vegetables from the plants, just the long process to go from farm to distributor to warehouse to other distributor to the grocery store, where it sits in the back for days or weeks, maybe even months before it actually ends up on the shelf, you are going to end up with a subpar piece of produce. So just actually getting the, being able to enjoy those things at their peak is something that's really awesome that we absolutely love. Another reason that we wanted to start a farm is just because it's something that we're very passionate about. We're both extremely passionate about food and being able to work with food all day long, just in a different way than working at a restaurant. It's very life-giving and makes us feel really good. And then also, I was really stressed out at my last job and really needed a change. And Ashley, my wife, who hopefully will be joining us very soon. There must have been something going on with the child to delay her as much as she is. But she really wanted to support me, and she knew that doing this would be really great for my mental health. And then also, just seeing how much joy it brings her joy. All right. Any questions about that before we continue? We'll give everybody just a moment, since, again, there is usually a lag. All right. So the first thing that we really want to talk about is how much land do you need? We have just shy of 25 acres, but we're currently only utilizing about 5 of those 25. And we bought as much land as we did is because we knew that land wasn't going to be getting any cheaper, and they're definitely not making any more of it. So we bought more than what we needed currently, and just kind of give us that safety net for the things that we have planned, maybe 10, 15 years in the future. You definitely don't need 25 acres or even 5 acres, because there are a lot of very profitable farms that farm on like a quarter of an acre. They just do a lot of very fast growing things that sell for a lot of money, like microgreens. I've seen different farms that, like, there's one in Canada, I believe, that they just do microgreens and carrots and a few other vegetables that grow quickly, and yeah, they're making like, grossing 100,000 plus in sales annually. So you definitely don't need that much. Look, Ashley joined us.
Hi guys, sorry I was late. I had kids to put to bed.
I guess when you're trying to figure out how much land you need when you decide to start a farm or a homestead, you need to kind of think about what do you want to grow and how much space that's going to take up. And also long-term plans, because like we would really like to put a pond on our property, and if we only had 6 or 7 acres, we are already using that and wouldn't have room for a pond. So you really need to also think about not only what kinds of crops or animals you want, but how much space that's going to take up. And definitely do your research, because a lot of people think, oh, I can buy, 2 acres and put 80 cattle on there, because 80 cattle will fit, but you're going to be feeding them lots of grain and hay because they're going to overgraze and there won't be any grass left by the end of the first day. So you definitely need to be smart about what you are wanting to do with your land and make sure that you're, not overworking the land. Things like row crops, like wheat, like you're probably not going to grow wheat on 5 acres because like you need, I don't know, Ashley knows more about that than I do probably, but you need a lot. Like most grain farms are like thousands of acres of just one type of grain, because you don't sell it for a whole lot. So it's all about volume, and you need not only lots of volume to make money, but you also need lots of expensive equipment to be able to harvest those grains.
Oh yeah.
And
then to process them into something usable if you were going to grow them for your own family.
Yeah. Yeah, so if we were to grow wheat, I don't even know how much space we'd have to dedicate just to wheat so that we could have enough flour for our household. It would be kind of ridiculous. So we're not 100% self-sufficient, nor do we think we ever will be, unless there's like some crazy economic collapse, which is possible. I know a couple of years ago we saw something that made a lot of people kind of rethink self-sufficiency. So, I mean, if it ever gets to a point where you can't go to the store and buy flour, we'll not be growing wheat still, but we'll just have to not use wheat and things, which is sad because we really like bread and things, but, we'll still survive.
Or we'll have to find somebody that we can barter with, and maybe they have some wheat that we can use, and we'll just have to give them something in return.
Yeah. Yeah, so, if you're wanting to do a large commercial farm, this video is definitely not for you. Our channel is probably not for you. But you can definitely learn a lot from us if you're trying to do something similar to us, or like I said, even just homesteading on a very small scale. Even if you have an acre, you could probably grow all the things that we're growing on an acre, or most of what we grow on an acre, but it would just be enough to feed your family and not enough to bring anything to the market. So things that you can grow with a very, very small amount of acreage are things like microgreens, lettuce, greens, carrots, beets, radishes, other things. Oh, Ashley, what are some other things that you think would be really good for people to grow who have very small yard, or even maybe they live in an apartment or a condo and they have enough room for like a planter box that they can put on their balcony or a patio?
Well, definitely those things. It would be smart to do some cut and come again greens where you are growing your lettuce in a very small space, but only cutting some of the leaves, harvesting partial amounts of each head so that you can continue to grow that. They will grow back numerous times before you have to reseed and start over. So that will definitely get you more bang for your buck. The microgreens, like you said, you're going to get a lot of nutrition in a very small space. Microgreens are packed with nutrition. Chard, it's one of our favorites.
Yep.
Full of nutrition, and you will get there's a lot of uses for it.
Yeah, we actually made a video about that went live this past Monday. So if you haven't watched that already, definitely do that, because Swiss chard grows incredibly quick. It's we went from seed to harvest, like for the farmer's market, in less than 7 weeks. And in about a 3-week period, we've gotten, I think, 6 harvests altogether, and we're averaging like 2 to 4 pounds per harvest. I mean, we're not bringing a whole lot to the market because a lot of people don't know what it is, and people are afraid to try new things.
And we probably could have grown it even faster. We started it in February outside, direct sown, and it was very chilly at that point, so the growth was slow in the beginning. We probably could have had it ready in 28 days. Yeah.
And if you are trying to be farm and do less homesteading, it would actually probably be wise to focus on just a couple things, because everything that you grow is going to require specialized equipment or tools or just something different that makes things a little bit more expensive to get started. So, but since we are striving for self-sufficiency, we want a little bit of everything. Like, we grow the things that we like to eat. So we have chickens that we raise for meat and eggs. We have pigs. We have goats and lamb and sheep. We have a sheep video coming out tomorrow, so watch out for that one. We got sheep, and
did we get sheep?
Yeah. And we have rabbits, and we have tilapia. So we have all of these animals, which require a lot of space, to at least to raise, in an ethical way. But we also grow a huge variety of fruits and vegetables because we like to eat all of the things. So
let me go back to the, growing and small space thing for just a second. So the seed packets, when you get them, will tell you how far apart you should space things, but you can plant things so much closer than what the seed packets actually say. You can do a lot in a very small space. So just depending on what you're growing, look into things like, growing large amounts of vegetables in small spaces, or the more land or the more of the soil that you actually cover with plants, the less likely you are to have weeds and stuff growing up from underneath. So anytime that you shade out that soil below, the fewer weeds can actually grow. They need light to germinate, and if you shade that light out, they're not going to be able to germinate. So it's actually going to make your life so much easier. And then as far as if you're growing in an apartment, a condo, a small space, you can always go up. So, don't count just the land that you have, the space that you have on the ground, but go up, go do vertical gardening, which is very easy to do. And you don't even have to do a hydroponics tower like we did. You can just do smart gardening where you're growing in a vertical space. Do shelving if you have to, or do container gardening where you're growing in buckets or containers. You can get a lot of stuff in that kind of space as well.
Yeah. If we were only trying to make money and not being self-sufficient, we would definitely be doing things differently. One of the things that we did when starting this farm was we decided we were going to grow everything, not only because we like everything, but we wanted to kind of dip our toes in a little bit of like the different types of animal products and produce and even flowers, because we weren't sure what the demand would be like when we actually go to the farmer's market. So if we dedicated all 25 acres to raising pigs, and we had 100 pigs on the property, and we sent all of them to the butcher, first of all, that would require a lot of freezer space that we don't have. And second of all, even if we were having them processed every other week, every other week, we weren't sure if we would have the customer base to be able to sell that pork. I mean, for example, we processed pigs last summer, and we had exactly 1 pig's worth of pork in our freezer to bring to the farmer's market. We started selling in October, so we sold all of October, November, and the first couple weeks of December when the market ended, and we sold about 3/4 of a pig in 2.5 months. And then this year, in March, we processed 2 pigs, and we still had a little bit of pork left over from the previous pig, and we are a month and a half in to the farmer's market, and we're almost out of pork.
Did you see this question over here?
Yes.
Okay.
And so we're growing our business, and we actually have a pig going to the butcher tomorrow. And the reason,
if we can get him loaded in the trailer.
Yeah, one of the reasons that Ashley was late putting kids to bed was because we spent about an hour trying to get him into the livestock trailer, and he's still not in there. And he needs to be at the butcher by 9 a.m. tomorrow. So we're, depending on how long this goes, we're either going to go out there with our headlamps on, or first thing tomorrow morning, as soon as the kids are on the bus, we're probably going to spend a little bit of time trying to lure a pig into the trailer. So we'll, I don't know if we're going to get into it today, but maybe, I don't know, we might do it I'll go ahead and just do it. So raising animals on pasture and giving them freedom and space is great until they're ready to go to the butcher. It's a lot easier to push, if you have pigs in a little concrete cell like the pigs that end up at the grocery store are, they don't have anywhere to run, so it's easy to do what you have to do to process them, but when they're on 2 acres and they're running around, and there are obstacles, and it's not as easy.
And when they outweigh you, and they're very stubborn, they're not going to cooperate. We loaded 1,000 pounds of other pigs in the trailer successfully multiple times, but
not the one we're actually trying to get to the butcher.
Not the one we needed.
Yeah. So that was exciting.
We really need a blooper reel for you guys to see what we actually do, because it's hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, most of the things that happen, we don't realize they're going to happen. So it's not like we have a camera following us all the time. I'm sure we could, make our first $1 million if we were reality TV stars. People just followed around, like all the shenanigans and mishaps that happen here.
I should wear the GoPro mounted just all the time, because the reality of what actually goes on is much more funny than what you see.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to talk about acquiring land now. So when we decided we were going to start a farm, we first tried to find acreage that had a pre-existing home. And we couldn't find anything within our budget. It was hard to find anything at all. And this was pre-pandemic. So we just had a really hard time finding existing homes with even 4 or 5 acres on them. Everything was way more expensive than what we ended up paying for what we currently have. Our real estate agent actually suggested that we look for just land and then build. And I thought that he was crazy, because I just assumed that building a home would be way more expensive than buying a used home. But when you look at some of the more affordable housing options, like we ended up getting a manufactured home, then it's definitely a lot cheaper. And a lot of the money that you're paying when you buy an existing home is all the things you don't think about, like the landscaping, the driveway, power, they're just, even the window treatments, and just little sometimes even light switches, and just things that you need in your home that aren't necessarily going to be there in a brand new home. So yeah, we definitely have spent a lot more money since we got our home and land on the home and land. But it's easier to get started if you do everything completely from scratch. So with that said, finding land sometimes is like not quite the same as finding a home, because like Zillow and Redfin and like all the real estate websites that you look on usually involve a home, whereas when you're just finding land, there are actually different companies that specialize in that. So that's how we found this property, was like countrytracts.com or something along those lines. But just, Google tracts of land for sale, and I'm sure dozens of different sites will pop up with listings. So now let's talk about the pros and cons of buying raw land like we did versus buying existing farmland. So at the time we were looking at property, pastured land was about 3 times more expensive per acre than timberland, like what we bought, which is just nothing but trees. So, for example, we paid $89,000 for our 25 acres of trees, and we found a really nice property that had pasture established, but it was only 15 acres, and it was like $175,000. So you really have to, figure out what you can afford and what you're willing to do, because it's not easy or cheap to make those improvements. Like, grass seed is expensive, fencing is expensive, tree removal can be profitable, but stump removal and debris removal is extremely time consuming and expensive. So like when we had our trees cleared, we had about 75% of our trees cleared, and we made $8,000. But we spent that renting equipment to remove tree stumps, and we covered about 3 acres in a month. So, with that said, like, we had a lot of issues, and we're not skilled professionals when it comes to operating that kind of equipment. So someone who had the experience probably could have done much more in less time. Again, when you are trying to save money, you have stuff like that happen. Like, we actually got a quote from somebody to clear stumps and do some minor grading for about 5 acres of our property, and it was going to be over $20,000. So $7,000 to do it yourself, or $20,000 to have somebody else do it. They have the equipment, they bring it in, they can do it in a few days or a week, versus us doing it for a month and not being able to do other things. But again, you have to weigh out, what do you have more of, time or money? We have more time than money, and we don't have a whole lot of time either. So, another thing to consider when buying raw land is the soil, because our soil was very acidic. We're in Georgia, so the red clay is really compact and it holds on to moisture and can have lots of drainage issues, which can definitely be a problem. But Ashley knows a lot more about soil conditions than I do, so I'll let her speak about that.
So the acidity is a problem, but I wouldn't discount clay. Clay is actually very good soil to have. And we're fortunate because we do have good draining soil. It does hold on to moisture, but that's a good thing if you are interested in growing things, because that means the moisture sticks around longer. You're having to irrigate less, which is a good thing. So you really just have to learn about your soil and work with it. And clay is it holds on to a lot of nutrients. It's very nutrient dense. And so just because it was a little on the acidic side, that came more from the pine trees that were growing in it and the pine needles that were decomposing on the top of it than the actual clay itself. So once you add some lime to that and fix that pH problem, then you do have a really good soil.
With that said, our 5,000 square foot garden space that we started with, we got 54 cubic yards, which is 3 full dump truck loads of organic potting soil dropped off, and that was enough to cover like, I don't know, like maybe 1.5 inches across the whole garden space. And it's very expensive. I mean, it's how much, like $600 a load or something like that?
Yeah, about.
Yeah.
Per truckload.
Yeah, so we spent all this money trying to get the soil delivered, and then we also had 20 tons of lime delivered that we tilled into that soil, as well as the front of our property and like about 2 acres of the backside of our property where we are going to be putting in some pasture. And I mean, all that stuff was very expensive, but if we could go back and do it all over again, we wouldn't have done any of that. We would have done what we're doing now, which is, first of all, we found a horse farm close to us that has lots and lots of manure that's been composting for close to a year. Some of it's been there for over a year, and they're just giving it away for free. There are so many horse farms or people with horses that are just trying to get rid of that manure, and they give it away for free, and it's extremely full of, it's just packed with nutrients and things that plants absolutely love. So if you can go and get a pickup truck bed full of that like a couple times a week, and just, shovel that into your compost pile or straight onto the ground, and then build on top of that, you'll be in a really good place. I'll let Ashley talk about what we're currently doing in our garden, which basically negates everything that we've done for the last 2 years. Like, we pretty much wasted a bunch of time and a lot of money. I really don't feel like going back and adding up all the expenses because it'll just make me really sad, and probably, I just don't want to deal with that. So, but we're doing something completely different now, and it's so far working really well. We've been taking lots of video, so we'll definitely be posting more updates with that once we have that project completed and we have successful harvests from that.
So we started out good. We got lime and we got soil delivered, but where we made the biggest mistake was tilling that into the ground. So when we did that, disturbing that soil created a whole host of other issues. So weeds actually grow to help repair the soil, and when you till the soil, you can be damaging the microbiome and stuff that's underneath the soil. So when we tilled the soil, we dug up weed seeds and exposed them to light, which made them grow. And weeds will grow much quicker and much stronger than the crops that you plant, especially in the beginning. And we got so overrun with massive amounts of weeds that we couldn't compete with them. So this year we decided to switch things up, and instead of doing any tilling whatsoever, we are blocking out the weeds with a layer of cardboard, and we are building on top of that. So a very important thing that I recently read said that you want to feed the soil and not the plants. And if you can create healthy soil and feed that soil, it will in turn take care of your plants and give your plants everything that you need. And so we are starting from scratch. We're in the same garden space, but we are treating it like it's a brand new garden, and we are doing everything that we can to block out the weeds and then just layer on things that will help benefit the plants. So we've started with cardboard and then put manure down over top of that and then soil, and all of those things will break down, and as they break down they will feed that soil underneath while also smothering out the weeds and preventing them from being able to grow. So we will definitely keep you up to date with that progress and show you what that looks like. So far it's been really good, and it will be a huge game changer if we can prevent those weeds from growing. So we are going to do our best to work smarter and save ourselves some of the headache, because I don't know if you've ever tried pulling weeds. And it doesn't mean that your garden will be weed free, but if you can get rid of 90% of your weeds, you're in good shape.
Yeah. Another huge thing with buying raw land versus an existing farm is fencing. Fencing is extremely expensive, especially since the pandemic. Everything's gotten so expensive. And lumber, lumber has come down quite a bit over the last year, but it's still more than it was 3 years ago, or 3.5 years ago, I guess now, almost. And it's between the materials, and then if you're not doing it yourself, if you need to pay somebody, labor is, first of all, extremely hard to find. It's almost impossible to find anybody who's willing to do most jobs these days. We're trying to get a well drilled for Ashley's parents so that they can move into their new home that's sitting on our property, but every single well company in the entire state has at least an 8-month backlog. And that's if you can even get a hold of them, because half the time they don't even answer the phone because they're so busy, and they have more work than they can handle. So there's a really good chance that it's going to be another year that their house just sits there and they can't even move into it because they don't have water, because there aren't people to do the work. And we definitely can't drill a well. We don't have the equipment for that. Those things cost used. Actually, I was looking into it the other day. Used, one of those trucks that drills wells is $700,000.
Is that all?
Yeah. So if you have about $1 million to invest and you want lots of business, start a well drilling company, because you will have more customers than you can handle. Oh my goodness. Yeah, so I'd say at this point in time, because of how crazy things are, you might be better off buying a pre-existing farm rather than doing it all yourself. But if you're just trying to homestead and you're building on what you already own and what you have, then the things that we do will benefit you probably a lot more than somebody who's actually trying to start a farm, because just how different the world is now than it was a couple of years ago. It's crazy how much has changed. So we're going to talk about how to overcome some of the obstacles when starting a farm or a homestead. We already talked about the soil with the gardening, but soil testing is important. Usually you can find a local extension office that'll come out and do soil testing. It's very inexpensive. What was it, $5?
5 or 10, yeah.
It's like $5 or $10 to have them per sample that they take, where they basically just take a big metal rod that takes a core sample, what was about maybe 6 to 8 inches under the surface, and they test it and see. They tell you exactly how much nitrogen and what are the other things that you test for in soil. That's more your department.
Nitrogen, phosphates, different phosphates. They're just going to tell you what you need to add back, and you let them know what you're going to be growing in that area, what your specific needs are. So whether that be vegetables or flowers or grass, and then they will kind of help guide you, tell you how much you need to add in to replenish the soil and get it to where you need it to be.
Yeah. Another thing you need to do when you have obstacles is observe nature, because for example, erosion is a huge problem. So it's almost impossible to fight nature, but you can work with it or work around it. So if you need to put in some drain control or drainage or erosion control, you need to figure out like, well, where does the water want to go as it is? That's probably where I need to put my drain pipes, because if I try to divert it in a completely different area, it's not going to listen to you. It's going to do what it wants to do. So you just have to really work with it. And like if you have predator issues, like if you have hawks in your area that want to eat your small animals, there's not a whole lot you can do about the hawk population. So you're going to have to figure out what it is you can do to prevent them from getting to your animals, because they're going to be there. Like you're not allowed to shoot them. You're not going to be able to take out every single opossum in the area who wants to come and eat your critters or come eat your cat food off your front porch. So you just have to do things to combat that, I guess in a more defensive way, because those things are going to come and eat your stuff. Like I know a lot of people have issues with deer. That's like, what's funny is I think people in the suburbs and like more urban areas have a harder time with deer eating their stuff than we do, because there's so much for them to eat in our rural area that they don't have to go very far. So like they're not like looking all over our property for stuff, because they're finding stuff everywhere. And like we haven't had a single hawk attack our chickens in the 2 years that we've had our birds here, or almost 2 years we've had them here, because there's so many other things for the hawks to eat. Yeah,
because they will, now that you've said that, come and get our birds.
But when we were in the suburbs, like I mean, we couldn't let our chickens out like to free range without us being right there, or having our dog outside guarding them, because I mean I saw them. I was outside and a hawk swooped down and attacked one of our chickens, because in the suburbs there's not as much food available. Out here there are like tons of wild rabbits and rats and squirrels and like all sorts of things that are smaller than chickens, because a hawk isn't much bigger than a chicken. They can't eat that whole thing in 10 meals, let alone one. So they are definitely going to look for something that's more, going to satisfy them than, just killing senselessly, because, I mean, ultimately they are trying to survive. Another thing that you can do is get livestock and let them do the work for you. So, for example, if you have a bunch of tree stumps and brush and things that you just want to get rid of because it's easier, like you just need to get rid of it, put some pigs on there, because they will root it up. We've had pigs dig up so many tree stumps and till the earth and like eat pests and like do all sorts of fun stuff that pigs like to do. We got goats and sheep as well, as I mentioned, and they love eating poison ivy and kudzu, and they also really like poplar leaves, apparently, because we had a bunch of poplar trees cut down, but then they started sprouting back from their stumps, so they're controlling those so we don't have as much growth. And I've been taking lots of drone footage of our goat area, and we use a semi-permanent portable electric netting so that we're able to put them in different areas around our property. So you'll be able to see when we post that video in the future what the area looked like when I put up the fencing, what it looked like before I moved the fencing to a new area, and then also what they've been able to accomplish in the second area in a relatively short period of time. So it's really funny looking at those like bird's eye view to see how much difference they make in that little area. Another tip we have is look for free things. Like we mentioned manure, rather than going to the store and buying fertilizer, find free fertilizer. Pallets are really great for a lot of different projects. So if you have access to free pallets, or if you don't know where to look, just go into Craigslist or the Facebook Marketplace. Sometimes you can find people giving away pallets for free. Lately, they've been a little bit harder to find, and a lot of times you have to people will charge like $5 for a pallet, which is still cheaper than if you were to buy the equivalent lumber at like Home Depot or Lowe's.
Cardboard.
Yeah.
We got a truckload of
Literally,
cardboard because we just happened to be picking up our feed from the feed store, and they got a delivery of boots in and had tons of boxes that they had to get rid of from the boots. So you have to do a little bit of work to take the tape and stuff off of them. You don't want that in your garden, but I mean, it worked out great because that all was perfect weed barrier for us, and that will break down and feed the soil.
Yeah. So something else that I mentioned earlier, that we're writing a book, and one of the things we're going to talk about is how we're striving to be a zero waste farm. And one of the ways we do that is when we do purchase feed, which we currently are doing before we're at a place where we can grow all of our animals' food. They eat a lot of the things that we grow on our property. But until we are at a place where we don't have to rely on commercial feed to supplement, we are actually saving those bags, and we use them as weed barrier as well. Mm-hmm. So we just take these, cardboard weed, or not cardboard, but like, thick paper feed bags, and we are cutting them down the middle and opening them up like a book and laying them down on the ground and using them as a weed barrier. We actually did that at the front of our property where we've started some flower beds. We have lots of video for that. We just haven't made it into a video because we want to show the progress from start to finish. And we have things growing out of the flower beds right now, but we still have a lot of work to do before it's really looking the way we want. So we really, rather than just showing you here's the first 4 hours of a flower bed, we want to show you the whole process. So we have lots of videos saved on our hard drive that we'll be editing into a video hopefully in the next month or so.
Yeah, they're starting to go, so they look pretty good.
Yeah. Another tip that we have is when you're deciding to start a small farm, you need to figure out where you're going to sell your products. So we definitely recommend going to the local farmers markets before you even start your farm and see what other vendors are selling, what prices they have. Because we went to where we sell all of our products on Saturdays. We went to that farmers market about 6 months before we even moved here. And we did a little recon, and we're just seeing what people were selling and how much they were charging. And I was actually surprised at how low some of the stuff was, because we talked about doing selling plant starts, tomato plants and things like that, and they were just selling them for so little that I was like, oh, I don't know that we could compete with that. Would it even be worth it? Yes, if you're planting a seed and it sprouts into a 12-inch plant, selling it for $2 may not be a whole lot of money, but I guess, when you paid a fraction of a penny and you sold it for $2, it's not that bad. But there are a lot of people are selling those things. So if you want to sell plant starts, and there are 8 other vendors that also sell plant starts, and they may have lived in that community for their entire lives, and they're in their 60s, 70s, or 80s, like when Ashley's friends at the market. She turned 81 the other 81. Day. Yeah, she turned 81 last week. So, when you are competing with that, you are probably dead in the water before you even got started. We yesterday at the farmers market, we did sell some pork, but literally the vendor next to us, they were selling beef, pork, and eggs, and their family farm was established the year I was born, and it's maybe 5 miles from our farm, and the son and his wife who sell at the market, he's a commissioner for the county. He just got reelected apparently, and his wife is a teacher, and everybody that comes to the farmers market knows them. So when they're selling a similar product right next to us, it's very hard for us to compete with them. But fortunately, they're only there. This is only the second time they've been there in the 7, 8 markets of the year so far. So I mean, they're there like once a month or every other month. So like us being there every single week, like we've kind of branded ourselves as a dependable vendor who's always going to be there for your needs. We actually had a tent get damaged because we were there when the weather was really bad, and had like a 50-mile-an-hour gust of wind that just destroyed the canopy and broke some of our signs, and like stuff was all over the place. And that was actually that day was our record sales day out of any farmer's market we've done. So the fact that we're one of the few vendors that didn't leave the market because of the weather, because actually the weather got really nice about a half hour after that happened. But we we had a really good day because we were there. Like, so just being dependable and definitely goes a long way. Another tip we have is making friends with other farmers, because you never know when you're going to need a favor. Like we're friends with some farmers that are about 15-20 minutes south of us, and they do pigs and chickens, and they had ordered a bunch of shrink wrap bags for chickens that they were processing, and they had already scheduled a processing day and had a bunch of people coming in to help, and their bags got lost in the mail. So they reached out to us because they knew that we raised chickens for meat, and because we can't sell the chicken, we have, and we buy things in bulk, like we had a lot of bags available. So like they ran over and picked them up, and they gave us, some money for it, like to where we weren't out anything, like, but we didn't make anything off of it either, but we were just, doing them a favor. So that, benefited them. Ashley's friend Louise at the farmer's market, she her family does lots of produce, and they have lots of scraps, so they sell a lot of cabbage and other things, and when they pull out the outer leaves that the customers don't want, they save all of those for us because they know that our pigs love them. So every Saturday that they're at the market, we come home sometimes with like giant bags or baskets full of produce scraps that we're able to feed our pigs. And it's, even though it's, maybe 5 pounds of feed, it's still extremely nutritious for them, and it cuts back, on what we have to feed our animals. So it's really nice to, like I said, just be friendly and, be kind to others, and, others will show kindness to you.
Yeah, definitely be kind. There is no need for competition. There's plenty to go around, and you never know when you need help from somebody, and you can use some of these people as mentors.
Mm-hmm.
If you're just starting out, find people who have knowledge and experience that you may not have, and talk to them, see if they're interested in teaching you anything. Like, we need to be there for each other and share that knowledge and help other people learn.
Yeah. So we have a question. It says, are you in Kansas too? We're not in Kansas. We're in Georgia. Is there a reason that you asked if we're in Kansas?
Maybe because we had 50-mile gusts of wind.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're not in Kansas anymore, Toto.
We're not. Although the tent did fall on us like the Wicked Witch.
Yeah.
We were trapped under it for
Yeah.
probably 30 minutes.
Yeah. That was not a fun experience. Yeah, so... and also, like, when you're making friends with other farmers, like, there's definitely some level of respect you have to have. Like, there are some really nice people that sell some things that we'd considered growing, but we don't really want to compete with them because we know that they have loyal customers that have been buying from them for years, and we don't want to, there's no need to compete with them. It's not something that we need to grow. It's something we could grow and we could potentially make money on, but, we try to do things that are a little bit different. We actually had a customer yesterday at the farmer's market that was saying hi to the vendors next to us, and they're like, "Oh yeah, like you guys have really good sausage." And then she like saw me and said, "You guys have really good sausage too." And then she said, "Yours is better."
The funny thing about that, though, is that we have our pigs processed at the exact same place and have our sausage made at the same place with the same seasoning. So the only difference is the way that our pigs are raised and the type of pigs that we raise.
Yeah, so we do stand out in a lot of different ways, and also because we have or like I have a culinary background, and Ashley's been doing she does a lot of baking, but she has been gardening and doing things on a small scale for like a really long time, but she has like more of a medical background, so she has like a very unique perspective, and so do I when it comes to doing what we do. And we are able to kind of put that bit of a spin on not only how we run our business, but also how we interact with our customers. Because being in like a customer facing job role for over 20 years, like I know customer service, I know how to treat customers. And Ashley, being in healthcare, being one-on-one with patients, she has to be extremely empathetic and know what people are going through and how to ease their anxiety. So she has a way with people that's different than what I have, but we're able to make really good connections with our customers because of our backgrounds. So we have another question. Did you teach yourself the business? So yes and no. We have learned a lot of things that a lot of what we do, don't have experience doing. I did restaurant management for almost 20 years. I've been in retail management as well. So I have about 20 years of management experience. So I know a lot about running a business, not necessarily a farm, but a lot of things are, they basically, they correlate. So like, doing a P&L, like a profit and loss statement, like comparing your expenses, your cost of goods, your utilities, and comparing that to sales, and like looking at your profits. Like that's stuff that I have a lot of experience with. So I'm able to use that to, I've made a lot of spreadsheets that have made our bookkeeping extremely easy. And I don't know that I would have known to do that had it not been for my experience. When we're selling to the customers at the farmer's market, because I do have that culinary background, I'm able to give people a lot of different cooking ideas that your average farmer may not know. And also because I've been food safety certified for over 2 decades, I know how to handle things and work in a way that's not going to make people sick, which is extremely important. So there are definitely there's a lot of overlap in food service and farming, but there are a lot of things that we have had to learn because a farm is not a restaurant, and we've made a lot of mistakes, and we share those mistakes, which is why our videos, our YouTube channel turned out a lot different than we expected it to, because it's more of like look at all these horrible mistakes we've made, learn from us, and because we don't want people to do the same things that we did along our journey. Like we're doing some good stuff now, but to learn from our successes and our mistakes, please. Here's a question for you, Ashley.
So I am not an MD. I wish that I had that kind of money, but I didn't have that kind of patience to go to school for 10 years. I was in the military, so I have a background in that, as well as paramedicine, and I do respiratory care now.
Yeah. A lot of that, like managing a business, it's good, but it's also kind of bad because I'm so used to managing other people that sometimes I treat Ashley as an employee and not a partner, because I've always been in a role where I did not have a peer working with me. I've always had people under me, and then I'd have a boss over me that would come in every once in a while. So sometimes I'm just like, we need to get this done. Like, we need to be on schedule. And that isn't always something that you should do with your spouse and your business partner. So, like, there's definitely a learning curve for me there. But ultimately, I know she's really happy that I do all the accounting and, like, handle all the business side of things, because she doesn't want to have to deal with numbers.
That is definitely not my strong suit. I would much rather grow the things and harvest the things and do all of that than actually put numbers in books and do taxes. And so I'm very thankful that I have somebody that can take that side of things for me.
Yeah. All right, so now we're going to talk about some of the different animals that you can choose when starting either a farm or a small homestead. So like chickens, quail, turkey, geese, those are the most common birds that people farm or, raise for meat and eggs. For us, like, I don't think we're ever going to get into quail. I mean, there's definitely a market for it, because, a lot of places like to use quail eggs, and like high-end restaurants use a lot of quail eggs. But for us, so quail grow very quickly, and they are really easy to take care of. Oh, we have a cat that wanted to join the live stream. So for us, it's just not worth it, because I'm not sure if anybody watching has ever eaten quail. It's delicious, but you don't get a whole lot of meat. There's just a lot of work for little payoff.
Yeah.
And the eggs are tiny. I mean, they're beautiful and they are tasty, but we have chickens, and we have enough space to where we don't have to worry about raising 100 birds in like a little hutch, because we have the space to raise chickens, and they grow pretty quickly and lay. Like, quail start. Do you remember how early quail start laying?
Very young.
It's like 2 months or something like that. Like, they're already laying eggs.
Very young.
Whereas
now quail would be a perfect choice if you were in an urban setting, more of a suburbs or something like that, where you had a very small space, or you couldn't have chickens. Some city ordinance will not allow you to have chickens. Right. So definitely do that research. And if that's the case, you can still do things. You can do rabbit or quail, and that would be great for that area. Right.
So before we continue, we'll go ahead and answer these questions. How's living in Georgia? Being in North Georgia and South Georgia are very different. So we're in North Georgia. We're less than an hour from Tennessee and North Carolina. So we get really hot, humid summers, but then we also get some cold snaps that get pretty low. Like, we had 5-degree mornings earlier this year that definitely created some challenges. There was about a week where all of our animals' water was frozen. So we were having to get water from the faucet on the front of our house to be able to bring water to our animals. And the follow-up question, is land relatively cheap in Georgia? Again, it really depends on the area. So we ended up where we did because I had never heard of the city. We live in Talking Rock, Georgia. I'd never heard of Talking Rock. I grew up like 40 minutes from Talking Rock. I had never heard of it. We had looked in a lot of the neighboring cities, and the property was so much more expensive. But for whatever reason, this place, because nobody's ever heard of it, was a lot cheaper.
I had heard of it, and I've only been here for about 11 years. So,
yeah. So I would say Georgia is probably not cheap compared to a lot of other places. I mean, it's definitely going to be cheaper than like New York or like LA, but I'm sure like maybe, I don't know, maybe like the desert in California might be cheaper. I really don't know. Like, that's not really my forte. But I think Georgia is not the cheapest place. Karen probably knows more about that than I do. She's in real estate. She also mentions that Ashley is a phenomenal baker. She definitely is. And we would like to start selling baked goods in the future at the farmers market. Probably not this year because we have so much going on this year. We have so many big projects that we're working on that we don't really have the time to take on anything new, even though we're writing a cookbook right now, which is...
He says that, and then the next day he will add something completely new and off the wall to our list. Like we don't already have more than enough to do.
Right, but there's another license you have to have and inspections in order to be able to sell baked goods. So it's just not something that we're ready to do. Like we talked about doing it this year, but with our garden having to be redone, and that's taking up a lot of time and money. So we're having to really focus on that. And then next year, we definitely would like to do some baked goods. We'd also like to do some spice blends to go with our meats and vegetables that we bring to the market. So yeah, we definitely are going to do that, but it's probably not going to be until next year.
I do have high hopes of adding baked goods and other cottage food to our market.
Yeah, I would agree. Mississippi and Arkansas are definitely going to be way cheaper than Georgia. But yeah. I mean, the main reason that we are where we are is because we do have family. We have children. We're a blended family, so we have other parents that are in the area, and we have family, like her parents are here. My mom is here. So like I grew up in this area, so like I do have a lot of really good friends in the area, and honestly, that is why we're in Georgia. When I was 19, I moved to Seattle because I hated the Georgia heat. I hated the sun. I mean, I'm on a farm now. Like I spend most of my time outside in the heat and in the sun. But when I was an angsty 19-year-old, I needed to get as far away as possible, move to Seattle. But very quickly, I learned that family and friends are a lot more important than the weather.
He still hates the sun, by the way.
I do. I complain about it all the time. Even though I'm like, let's be on a farm. Let's go outside and do all the things right now. But yeah, I still don't like it.
Yeah, he hates it. He hates the heat, and then he chooses a career that you spend all day, every day outside, and it's 8 months of very hot weather and humidity in Georgia.
But it's okay. So yeah, overall, I would say chickens are the easiest animal to get started with, and they're a lot of fun. Yeah, people in Seattle are not very nice. That was my experience. The people were the reason that I left. Definitely.
And you're going to find that everywhere, but you will find that in certain areas there are people that are much more friendly than in other places.
Yeah, I didn't realize Southern hospitality existed until I moved to Seattle, and I was like, oh man. Like, I opened up a door for somebody, and they're like, why are you opening up the door for me? Like, I was like, sorry, it's something you do. Like, I didn't realize that was a thing. Yeah, Georgia is no longer an inexpensive place to live, especially Metro Atlanta. Perhaps land would be cheaper in Middle Georgia. Yeah, definitely. Like, because we did look in other areas, but we needed to be relatively close. We needed to be within an hour of our exes because we have children that they go back and forth every week. So it wasn't feasible to be several hours away. So another animal that's really easy that Ashley did touch on is rabbits. We keep our rabbits outside. You can even keep them inside. I had a pet rabbit that lived to be 12 years old. They do very well inside and they do very well outside. We had 5-degree mornings and our rabbits survived. We have had 100-degree days and our rabbits survive. As long as you give them shade from the sun, you give them plenty of water. In the winter, you give them like a nesting box or something that they can get in so they can get out of the breeze. Give them plenty of straw so that they can make a nest. And they'll even pull their fur out and make a nest out of that so that they can stay warm. Make sure they have plenty of food because they will eat to maintain their body temperature. But rabbits are very easy. They breed like rabbits. There are so many different varieties and breeds. We raise like kind of a small to medium sized rabbit. We are actually going to be getting a larger sized rabbit pretty soon to start breeding. but we get anywhere between like 3 to 8 babies per litter, and they're weaned at about 4 weeks old. They're still very small, and you definitely don't want to eat them. I mean, you could, but it's not really worth it.
It would be like the quail.
Yeah. But for us, we got rabbits because we did want to have an additional food source, another source of income that's very low maintenance. So for us, like, we sell our rabbits right now for about $25 a piece, and we usually have, again, between like 3 to 8 babies born every month. And with the breeders that we have, because we have 3 females that we breed, and we spend $18 a month in feed. So we sell 1 rabbit a month and we're profitable. And a lot of times when people come to the farm to buy a rabbit, they will also buy eggs and sometimes meat and other things while they're here, so we get to add on kind of extra sales. So it's pretty good for us. It's not, huge, and the demand for rabbits isn't huge, except around Easter. They get really popular for obvious reasons. So it's one of those things that if we scaled up too much, more than what we currently do, we would have an abundance of rabbits that we couldn't get rid of. But we do have a couple rabbit recipes in our book that we're writing right now. So if you ever have some that you can't sell, or if you need to, if you have an old breeder that is not, isn't able to make babies anymore, you can find another use for her.
Or if you just enjoy rabbit.
Yeah.
It's very popular in lots of other cultures.
Yeah. Another animal when we talk about are pigs. So we raise our pigs on pasture where we rotationally graze them. Our pigs are on about 2 acres, and we currently have 4 adults and some piglets. And one of the adults is going to the butcher tomorrow, as long as we can get them loaded in the trailer. And they have more than enough space, but the quality of the meat you get raising them this way is just so far superior to anything you buy at the grocery store. Like, it is, when you have to buy feed, it is extremely expensive. And when you're breeding your own animals, feeding them until they actually have babies is very costly. I have spreadsheets, like every single bag of feed that I've opened since we've come to this farm, I have tracked when I opened it and how much that bag has cost. And I have a breakdown that shows exactly how much. My breeder's like, I'll actually pull it up right now while I'm thinking about it and tell you how much they've eaten. So I have it broken down and how much we've paid for each of our pigs that have gone to the butcher, how much we've fed our females that we breed, as well as our male. So let's see. Once it loads. There it goes. Okay, so our females, we have 2 females. We have spent $874 on each of them. And our male we've spent $462 on him. With that said, each female can have 2 litters per year, and they usually have 12 to 15 babies at a time. So if you look at it that way, we've had our females for a year and a half and our male for not even a year. So like total, we've spent about $2,000 feeding them. But in a year, we can easily get 40 babies that would have cost us between $4,000 and $5,000 to purchase from another farm. So breeding your own animals does save money in the long run, but there is definitely an upfront cost of feeding them up to the point where they actually are breeding. But it's, again, getting back to self-sufficiency. If people, like, when we decided to start a farm, I was like, well, let's get pigs. Actually, we designed this before we even, this shirt right here, before we even got pigs, because I knew that we wanted to do pigs. Where is he? There he is. There's the pig. And when we were looking into it in 2019, the average cost of a piglet was about $25. Now you can't find them for less than $100. And they've gone up 4 times what they were 3.5 years ago. So what happens if something else happens and the cheapest pig you can find is $300? Well, if you're already breeding pigs, you don't have to worry about it. And you can sell extra pigs from your litter if they are $300 and make a really good chunk of change that can pay for the feed for, sell a couple pigs and pay for the feed for all the others. Oh, you were asked what you bake.
So when I got out of the military, I took a little break from healthcare for a while and was actually a cake decorator. So I can bake just about, there is a fly, get out of here fly. I can bake anything, and I do. I bake birthday cakes and bread and pastries and pies, and I make ice cream and you name it. So I may not have the culinary school background, but I have definitely learned lots of baking over the years.
Yeah. Okay. And our operating costs, again, so a lot of our operating costs, it's not so much like just operating costs. It's like paying for fencing, paying for soil deliveries, paying for structures, and like we're spending a lot of money setting up. And those are expenses that, as long as we maintain our equipment that we've purchased and our structures, buildings, and everything, our breeding stock, we spent a lot of money on our breeding stock, as I just got done talking about. So we've made a lot of investments. So we've spent between about $40,000 to $60,000 each year the last couple of years, and we've definitely not made that much. But with that said, this year, we're almost 5 months into the year, and we've spent $11,000. So we're on track for a lot less, and a lot of that has been things that we've been different things we've been building, and we bought goats and sheep this year, and which are all breeding stock. So we haven't made any money off of goats or sheep yet, but we had to buy fencing for them and build a structure for them, buy the animals, all of that stuff involved a lot of expense. But within the next few years, between the fact that we're breeding all of our own animals and we are going to be able to harvest seeds, we're not going to have, and because we are zero waste and we're self-sufficient and everything, we're going to have very few expenses going forward. Just things like fuel and just, some regular maintenance. So there is still a possibility we'll be profitable this year. It definitely won't be by much, but there is a good chance we'll be profitable this year. And next year, I definitely foresee us being profitable. I'll look right now. So keep in mind, the farmers market didn't open until April. So we had very few sales in January, February, March. So I'm pulling up 2023. So we've made about 58, and this doesn't actually include yesterday's market. I haven't added it yet. So we've made $6,000 this year in sales. We've spent $11,000 and we've made $6,000. And
that's in what, 7 weeks?
Yeah, in 7 weeks. So we're definitely doing better this year as far as expenses versus sales. So yeah, see.
Hi, the Diamond Gaming. Thanks for joining us.
On a daily basis, when do you have to wake up? So during the week, we have children, so we wake up at 6:15 during the week to get our kids up for school and enjoy a cup of coffee while they're getting ready. and one of us usually takes them to the bus stop while the other stays home, and then we get started with our day. The weekends, like Saturdays, for example, we actually wake up at 5 because we have to be at the farmer's market by 6:30 to get set up and ready to start selling at 7:30. So again, like we have to wake up, we get our coffee, we, get everything loaded up into the car and into the trailer so that we can do that. And but we also stay up very late. So Fridays, we spend a lot of the day getting ready for the market. We're doing a lot of harvesting and getting everything ready to go. We have inventory sheets for the pork that we bring to the farmers market because we don't bring everything that we have. We have a freezer that we bring that has a little bit of everything to sell, and so we have inventory sheets just so we know what's in there. So I mean, there's a lot that goes into it, but we probably put in about 10 hours a day farming. And so clearly we're not profitable. We're spending a lot of money. We're not independently wealthy. So what we do currently is we do work part-time jobs. Ashley actually still works in healthcare, but she just does one night, sometimes 2 nights a week. But she works overnights. So that means that Tuesday she's sleeping during the day. Tuesday night she's at work for 12 to 13 hours, and then she sleeps the first part of Wednesday after she gets home. So I'm doing all the farm work Tuesday and Wednesday, other than maybe Wednesday evening. And then Thursdays I do Lyft driving because of the flexible scheduling, and I don't make as much hourly as I did at like my previous job on average, and I don't make as much as Ashley does. But so when I do that, I'm usually gone for 12 to 13 hours. And it's hard because it takes us away from the farm. It's like Thursdays I'll wake up at 6 in the morning. I'm going 100 miles an hour like that entire morning and early afternoon. I usually stop and eat lunch around 1 or 2. I hop in the shower, and then I get in the car and I drive around for 12 hours until the app tells me that I'm not allowed to drive anymore. I need to go home and get rest. And then I come home at like 3 or 4 in the morning. And then I wake up at like 8, 9. I don't sleep very much because once the sun's up and the roosters are crowing, I have a hard time going back to sleep. So once I'm up, I'm up. So I'm usually Fridays I'm running on about 3 to 4 hours of sleep. And that's, like I just mentioned, an extremely busy day for us. So, and then Saturdays are early mornings. So, yeah. So, basically, we have really crazy schedules right now, and we really need to find a way to stop working our part-time jobs. But unfortunately, the lender likes it when we pay our mortgage. Mm-hmm. And like the electric company says they'll turn off our power if we don't pay them. So we have to do that. But one of the things that we're hoping will happen soon is, as I mentioned, so anybody who's joining us now may not have heard earlier, but we are in the process of writing a book about our farm. And it's about like our backgrounds and why we wanted to start a farm, our farming practices, and what makes us different from conventional farms. And then it's also a cookbook. So we'll, for example, have a chapter on root vegetables and how we grow our root vegetables without using any chemical fertilizers or pesticides or fungicides or anything like that. And then we'll have like a delicious recipe for some roasted beets with goat cheese. So it's something that we're really excited about, and we're going to launch a Kickstarter on July 1st to help raise some money for some of the publishing costs, and also give us some money to be able to not work our part-time jobs, so we can focus on our farm, focus on finishing up this book that we've started, so that when it's ready to be published, hopefully we make some decent book sales. And maybe we won't have to go back to working those part-time jobs, and we really can be focused 100% on the farm. So what inspired us to live this lifestyle? So this is, if you had told me 5 years ago that I was going to start a farm, I would have laughed in your face and told you were crazy. I've always been extremely passionate about food, but more cooking and eating and not necessarily growing. But Ashley definitely inspired me. Again, this is stuff we're going into a lot of detail about in our book. So we are going to be selling it on Amazon. We're going to be selling it on our website. And our goal for the publishing is that it's going to come out on December 1st this year, which is Ashley's 40th birthday.
Woohoo!
So again, like, make sure you, if you don't already, like, subscribe to us and follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, because we will be posting lots of updates about that. So July 1st is when our Kickstarter is going to go live, and we're going to have some early bird specials for our ebook and our hardcover book. We're also going to be doing a paperback version of the book. So the first 15 people to get the ebook or the hardcover will actually get a bit of a discount. And if you support us in general, you're actually going to pay less than the MSRP that we're going to be selling it on Amazon. So this is going to be a really great way for people to back us and get something really cool that's, that we're sharing this part of our life and our passion with you. So thank you. I really hope our YouTube channel takes off as well. Like, we've not had a lot of time to dedicate to it lately because we've been so busy. We've been getting a lot of video in the meantime, but it's hard for me to get everything edited and put out. Like, I really do try to get a video out every week, and I've been doing some shorts recently.
Yeah, we will definitely do signed copies.
Yes, we actually do have a signed copy. So on one of the add-ons, when you get the book, when you get when you get any of the physical copies, for $10 more, you can get a signed copy. So that is definitely something. And then we're also going to have a bulk. So basically our different things, we're going to have an ebook that you can back. You can get the paperback, the hardcover. There's going to be a gift one, keep one. So you get 2 hardcover books for a little bit of a discount. You can add on the ebook when you buy the physical copy for a little bit less money. And then we're also going to have a tier where you can actually tell us what your favorite recipe is or your favorite dish, and we will include a riff of that recipe in our cookbook. So we are only going to be having things that we grow as the focus of our cookbook. So we don't have cattle at this point in time, so we're not going to have any beef recipes. So for example, if your favorite recipe is beef bourguignon, we will do a riff on that using something that we do raise on our farm that we will include in the cookbook. And we're also going to have an option for a private farm tour, so you'd be responsible for your transportation and lodging, but we are going to offer a 2-hour private tour of our farm where you can see what we do and ask as many questions as you want, and you'll also get sent home with a goodie bag full of seasonal offerings like some pork, eggs, produce. So you definitely won't leave empty-handed, and you'll also get a signed hardcover book in your goodie bag as well. And we also, our highest tier is a farm-to-table meal, where not only do you get that private tour and a copy of our book, but we'll also cook for you. And this is, if you select this option, it's for you and up to 3 guests. So, 4 people will be a part of that. And we'll work out the scheduling and everything at a time that is beneficial for everybody. But yeah, so we definitely have some really exciting things that we're really looking forward to sharing with everybody. Let's see, did we miss any questions?
I think we got them.
Yeah. All right, so let's move forward. So goats and sheep, I mentioned earlier that the goats and sheep are really great at clearing out things like poison ivy and kudzu and other like less desirable things. So rather than me being out there with a weed eater or pulling things by hand or navigating trees and all that, just let the goats and the sheep do the work. They are doing a fantastic job. Yes, we do have a website. It's rigganfarm.com. On there we do have an online shop where we will ship non-perishable things. So we do make all natural soaps and some other products that we will ship, but we're not going to ship any meats or eggs or anything like that, or produce, just because the shipping costs would be so much to have to, send coolers with dry ice and everything. It's just not something that we can't. Actually, the closest place that has dry ice is like a half hour from us. So we would have to charge you like $80 to ship you a pound of pork, and we would feel really horrible doing that, so we don't. We have a couple things on there, just like some very brief things about how we raise our animals, and has a lot of pictures and like videos and some things like that. And again, we will have our book for sale on our website in December. So other really popular animal that people get on their farm or homestead are cattle. We are planning on getting cattle within the next couple of years. The thing with cattle versus a lot of these other animals is that they are very picky eaters, and they need really high quality pasture if you're going to do grass-fed beef. If we were just feeding them hay and grain, we would need a lot of space, and we would need healthy pasture. But we want all of our animals to live a happy, healthy, natural life, and we are not going to compromise the quality of the product we produce just because we want to have it. So we're waiting until we have some really nice, healthy pasture established for at least a year, because when cattle, because they weigh over 1,000 pounds, when they're stepping on all the grass, they're damaging the plant, and if the root systems aren't strong, then they'll die. So we don't want to put all this grass down just to bring cows on like a month or two later, just to kill all the grass, and now we have to spend thousands of dollars feeding them hay and grain. It's just not something we're going to do right now. So it is, and also with cattle, as delicious as they are, they're a lot more expensive. They take 2+ years before you can bring them to the butcher and have a market weight animal. So there's just a lot more time and money involved. But you definitely, when you're feeding them grass, the only expense you have is the animals. And if you're breeding your own animals, there's very little expense other than just processing them. So yeah, it's something we're definitely going to be doing. Another animal that a lot of people don't think of when homesteading is fish. We have an aquaponics system where we have a fish tank, and the nutrient-rich water fertilizes a grow bed where we grow things hydroponically. We just posted a video this week that shows our system. I made some improvements to our system to kind of combat some of the issues we were having. I made some mistakes during that process, and I very clearly state in that video what I did wrong and what you should do instead of what I did. But it's a relatively inexpensive setup, and it doesn't take up a lot of space, and you can grow so much food, and it's awesome. We haven't harvested any of our tilapia yet, but when we do, they're going to be featured in our cookbook. We're going to, when we cook them, we'll be taking lots of photos. So the 2 tilapia recipes we have that we're going to do is a whole roasted tilapia and a pistachio crusted tilapia, which is really good. Excuse me. Choosing crops. I'm going to let Ashley talk about this because that's definitely more her thing. But so what would you recommend when people are trying to choose crops that they're going to grow?
Well, you definitely want to first and foremost determine what your growing zone is so that you know when your last frost is going to be, your first frost, and that time frame in between that last and first frost is going to give you how many days your season is, basically. And then, kind of plan out what you like, what you enjoy eating, or do your research. And, if you're growing for market, look to see what everybody else is growing, and then maybe don't grow that, because that is, you want unique things. You want things that might be a little bit different, different varieties. Even if you want to grow some similar things, just pick different varieties. Heirloom varieties always are the most flavorful. They're also going to be, most of them are going to allow you to be able to harvest those seeds and clean them and save them so that you're saving money. So you're making an investment when you buy your seeds. You can save seeds for your future years and you're not going to have to keep making that investment every year. So pick things that are going to give you a lot of options as far as trying to sell things or feeding your family. Pick things that you can if you need to, or that you can freeze and put away. Things that will get you through the season where you don't have growing, where you can't grow things. A lot of things you can try to overwinter depending on what your growing zone is, and if you can protect things from the elements, you can sometimes extend that some with a greenhouse or row covers, and that will definitely help extend that stuff a little bit. But there will be parts of the winter that you won't be able to harvest anything unless you're growing indoors, and you need that backup kind of in the freezer or in your pantry to just kind of get you through.
Does Georgia have a lot of wine vineyards? Yes, they do.
Definitely.
Like, especially the area where we are. We have a vineyard about 10 minutes away, and that's actually where we bought our IBCs, the intermediary bulk containers, the 275-gallon plastic containers that we used to make our aquaponics system, and we also use them as animal waterers because it's really convenient to give your animals 275 gallons of water and not have to worry about filling it up for a really long time. So we got them from those tanks from them at a pretty good rate. So they can be a resource in a lot of different ways. Another thing about like choosing crops is if you're trying to start a farm and you're going more towards like profit and less about like self-sufficiency, or flowers are an excellent option because you can make a lot of money selling flowers. I mean, you can grow flowers in the same space that you can grow corn. And like when you go to the grocery store and buy, 3 ears of corn for $1, or you go to the florist and buy 3 flowers for $10, like, I mean, you make a lot more money selling flowers than you do vegetables and fruits. But I mean, and we do grow flowers, and we've sold flowers at the farmers market, and but we have such a limited amount of time we have right now, and we are trying to feed our family. And I guess if we made more money selling flowers, we could also feed our family a little bit easier. But it's just.
So do your research when you are trying to decide what your goal is, whether or not, if you're homesteading, of course, you're going to want to choose food. Growing vegetables, you still need flowers because you need those pollinators to come in. And having things that are lots of bright colors are going to invite the pollinators in to help you pollinate and cause your vegetables to grow more fruit. So flowers are definitely a necessary thing regardless. But if you want to grow for market and that is your priority, then research commodity crops. Research things that are going to bring in the most money based on the harvest. So flowers are for sure, they're going to be one of the biggest money producing crops that you can grow in a small scale. So you don't need a big area to be able to grow them. And other things, mushrooms, different things like that. There are a lot of commodity crops out there, and if you just research that, it's going to tell you a lot of details as far as what you're going to get the most bang for your buck.
Yeah. Another thing is, like, you can extend your growing season by using things like greenhouses, and even like our aquaponics system. When you have water that's like 85 degrees pumping through your grow bed, you're affecting the plants in a way and extending that growing season to, start spring a little early and make your fall last a little bit longer. So there are a lot of different techniques that you can do to battle some of those like weather issues, and also like if you don't have really good established garden soil and you have a lot of weeds to combat, like raised beds are great. Like we're doing strawberries in raised beds right now, and they have been the biggest hit at the farmers market this week. We sold more, like we needed at least like 10 times the strawberry plants we have. We have over 100 strawberry plants. If we had over 1,000 strawberry plants, we still would have sold out of strawberries this week at the market. So and they're in raised beds, and we're doing it without chemicals or pesticides, which means that we're also not getting our full harvest because we do have a lot of pest damage as well. But then we get to feed those to the chickens and the pigs and the goats, and they like it. I would rather sell the strawberries than give them strawberries, but it's still cute watching a goat eat a strawberry. I posted a video of that the other day. So where are you now? Would you say the process was harder or easier than you thought it would be? Oh, it is way harder than I thought it would be. Ashley might have had more realistic expectations than me.
It's definitely not easy. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of money to get started. There's a lot of startup cost. But again, those are things that if you take care of them, the infrastructure, the fencing, you repair your fencing and stuff, that's going to last you years. So it's an investment. You put that money in the beginning, and it just pays you back year after year. Yeah. So it's definitely worth it. It's very difficult. You do work really long days. You have to work in the elements where that's not in every job.
Yeah.
You don't have AC when you're out there, and right. There's definitely bugs, and there are briars and poison ivy, and you are dealing with large animals a big part of the time, and they can be very stubborn, and they can at times be aggressive. So there's you have to be smart about it and be careful. But
I last January, so like a little over a year ago, I had COVID, and I was outside putting up fencing with COVID. And we got the flu this past December, and we still had to go out there and feed the animals. Like we had to do the things whether we felt like it or not. Like
there's no days off. You don't get a day off.
Like you have to get a farm sitter to go on vacation. If you don't have animals, it's a lot easier to take winter vacations. But like a lot of destinations like aren't as fun to visit in the winter. But yeah, so if you have animals, you have to get a farm sitter, or depending on what animals you have, like you might be able to have some kind of system set up to where you're able to provide them enough food and water to last for a few days. Like we could go on a day trip. Like we're about an hour drive from Chattanooga, so we could easily feed all of our animals and drive up to Chattanooga and spend the entire day in Chattanooga and come back home, and the farm wouldn't suffer. And yes, we do plan on hiring people. Like we keep saying, like we need to make enough money to pay ourselves before we can start hiring other people. We absolutely would love to hire people. Because Ashley is a veteran, we're very interested in providing jobs for veterans who are in need, and also potentially getting to a place where we can provide some housing, and also even for people who aren't necessarily working for us, just providing some therapeutic services for veterans who suffer from PTSD.
There's a lot of other options as well, though. You can do some interns. There are people that are going to school for agricultural or horticultural degrees, and they have need for different kinds of hours that they need to get and work experience on farms and things like that. So you can get that kind of help. And there's also other things you can do. There are programs where you can have people come in and help tend with the garden or the animals and stuff and then work for trade. So you may not have the income to pay them, but they might be able to take like CSA shares where they're doing work in the garden, but they're getting to go home with food. So things like that. It's there's a lot of opportunities where you can find some help that's not too expensive.
Yeah. So the next thing we want to talk about is kind of the money, making money versus self-sufficiency, like the big differences. So the most profitable farms definitely specialize in just like one or two things, like because like I said, we like to eat all the things. We're not able to be as profitable because every single thing you do costs. There's money involved in that. So having goats, they have different requirements than pigs, and they have different requirements from chickens. So you have to have like completely different sections for them. Sometimes you can mix your animals. Like we have sheep and goats together. Our rabbits, the fencing that we have our rabbits in to protect them from predators is also our chicken fencing. So we do, have some overlap. But there are different tools and different types of equipment to do different things, and each different food type that you take on, you're adding an expense, and you'll be able to be more effective and efficient and profitable if you focus everything on one thing. So yeah, we could make a lot more money if we focus on one thing, but then we wouldn't have that self-sufficiency aspect of it.
Another thing is that we are looking at potentially opening a farm stand. Like one of our big goals is that we won't have to go to market one day. We'll be able to have the market here on the farm and have people come. And having a one-stop shop for people is a great thing, being able to have the eggs and the meat and then the produce and all of that right here on the farm where people can come and they can pick things up. And that makes life easier for busy people.
Yeah, we would have the farm stand opened primarily during the week, and it would be like late afternoon, early evening, so people getting off of work can swing by the farm and get fresh ingredients that were harvested that day, in some cases, and go home and make dinner with the freshest ingredients possible, and the tastiest too. Another reason that focusing on too many things can be challenging is like all of the licensing and it's because basically to sell so we have to pay every couple of years for our state business license. We have to pay annually for our county business license. To be able to sell meat at the farmer's market, we have to have a mobile meat license. In order, like we were saying, if we start selling baked goods, we have to have a cottage food license. In order to process, animals, like they have to be processed in a USDA inspected facility. So there's cost associated with that. Like we're actually having a hard time right now because we have goats and sheep now, but we can't find any processors in the area that will process them. So we can do it ourselves. We legally can't sell it to the public because it's not being done in a USDA inspected facility. So there are lots of obstacles. Another thing to definitely look into if you want to start a business, if you think I'm going to sell lamb, there's nobody's in the area selling lamb, you need to find a place to get them processed. So that might involve buying a huge livestock trailer and bringing 100 sheep to Alabama or wherever the closest place is to get them processed. So you're gonna have to factor in all of that, and it may not be worth it.
Right. So do your research because there might be a reason that nobody in the area is selling that thing because
they can't.
There might not be a way to make that happen.
Yeah. Another thing is like animal welfare versus making money. Like as we mentioned, like pigs that are raised for grocery stores and even most butcher shops live in a little concrete cell. Like they go to the bath. They have enough room to move around, like just circle around. They go to the bathroom, they eat, they drink, all in the exact same area. And somebody comes by and hoses them off and lets all the stuff go down the drain. And it's very efficient. And you just pump them full of corn and soy, and they get fat really fast. Like the grocery store pigs, they're usually about 6 or 7 months old when they're processed, when they're full market weight. And our pigs, like the one we're taking to the butcher tomorrow, I think he's about 10 months old, and to get to the same weight. And it's because they're exercising and they're eating vegetables, and it's just like with people, like animals, that eat a bunch of junk food and live sedentary lives and never go outside, like they get fat and they're also not healthy. So if you eat an animal that's not healthy, then what you are, what you eat. Like you're trying to eat for pleasure, and for nutrition as well. And if you're not getting all the nutrients and the right kinds of nutrients, that's a problem. That's one of the reasons that we have so many health problems, especially here in America, is because all the factory farms are just pumping out this food because the farms are trying to be profitable, and it's affecting the health of our nation, and it's really sad.
As much as we want to make money, we want to make a healthy community.
Yeah, and we don't want to treat our animals poorly. Like the chickens that produce eggs and meat for the grocery store, they live in an 8-inch by 10-inch cage their entire lives. And our chickens have, right now, the space that we have fenced in for our chickens, they have 400 square feet per chicken. That's more space than a lot of humans have. So, we're adding chickens to our flock. We have 20 birds and a brooder right now that are a few weeks old that will be integrated in with our other chickens. But we care about our animals, and we want them to live happy, healthy lives and be able to socialize. And we don't want to compromise our ethics and morals just to make an extra couple bucks. It's not worth it. Another thing is whether you want to grow produce conventionally versus USDA certified organic versus actual organic. So pretty much every vegetable or fruit or anything else at the grocery store, it's grown using chemical fertilizers, chemical pesticides, chemical fungicides, and when they harvest it, they put growth retardants on it and artificial color, and they irradiate it if it comes in from another country that destroys all the nutrients and flavor, and there's all these horrible things. So a lot of people buy organic because they don't want all that. But what they don't realize is that USDA certified organic isn't a whole lot different. They still are allowed to use USDA certified chemicals. They have approved chemicals that they can spray on organic things. There are organic approved pesticides that you can put in your plants, and all that all the USDA organic stuff, that only covers the growing of the produce. That once it's harvested, they do literally the exact same things as the conventional produce.
Especially if it comes from a different country.
Yeah.
Because to enter into our country, it has to have certain things. The USDA that is regulating that organic produce is also regulating all these stipulations of the things that have to be done to the produce before we are allowed to bring it into the country. So just because it's organically grown doesn't necessarily make it organic, and chances are by the time it reaches you, it's not anymore. And when it's harvested a month before it's actually ripe, and then ripening is induced by different methods, that that produce does not contain the nutrients that you need from it and that you are expecting to be able to get when you eat it.
Yeah. Like strawberries are a perfect example because when we harvested our very first strawberry a few weeks ago, I took a bite and I was just like, I didn't know strawberries could taste so much like strawberry. Like, I was just blown away. I had never had a truly natural, organic, plant-ripened strawberry. And my mind was blown. And, like, I've had people at the farmer's market walk by and they see, a little carton of strawberries and they're like, oh, your strawberries are really small compared to what they sell at the grocery store. And it's like, well, you know what? We grow heirloom variety strawberries and we grow for flavor and nutrition, and we're not trying to win beauty contests. But I was like, it's like, if you're not convinced, just pick up that carton and smell it. And they pick up this carton, put it to their nose, and they're like, I've never smelled strawberries that smelled like strawberries before. Like, it's seriously like a life-changing thing. And there's like strawberries. Like, and it's like that with everything. When you actually pick the produce when it's ready to be picked, it's not going to last as long before it gets to your customer. But man, there is a huge difference in flavor and nutrition. All of those nutrients that are supposed to be in that plant actually went into the fruit or the vegetable. So you're getting a better experience all around. Yes, we love strawberries too. Even more so, I love strawberries more now than I did a month ago.
These strawberries taste like strawberries.
Yeah. Yeah, so, when starting a farm, you got to prioritize what's more important, profitability or doing something that's better for your community and for you, because we're trying to be in the business of helping other people live a healthier and happier lifestyle through food, and I don't want to give people even more chemicals, than they're already consuming. Like, they can go to the grocery store if they want chemical-laden produce. They can go eat fast food if they want meats that are high in saturated fat, unlike our pastured animals. Like, they can get that anywhere. But
I wholeheartedly believe, though, that if you focus on raising things properly and providing the community with good ingredients, that the profitability will follow. It may take a little bit of time to get there, but I think that it will eventually.
Yeah, we mentioned that earlier. Once we get pasture established, we do plan on getting cattle. We will have cattle for beef, but we plan on breeding animals. So when the cows, have babies, when they have calves, they will also produce milk. So we'll be able to milk them. And our goats, we'll be able to milk them. And our sheep, they're a little skittish right now. So even though we have a sheep that's going to have a baby probably within the next week or two, I don't think she'll let us milk her. But I'm hoping that when she does have babies, they're female, and we'll, be able to be more hands-on, and they'll know us from the day they're born and let us milk them when they ultimately have babies.
Definitely, when you are picking your animals, try to find things that you can use that are dual purpose. So we raise chickens that are dual purpose that we can use for egg production and for meat, as well as goats. Use breeds that will give you both milk and meat. Sheep, same way. So anytime that you can use a dual purpose breed of animal, you are just doubling what you can get from it.
Like, for example, some of the chickens that are the best layers, they only weigh about 3 pounds. So when you process them, you have about a 2-pound bird. And there are chicken breasts at the grocery store that weigh that much, let alone an entire bird with all of its bones and everything still. So like but the self-sufficiency aspect of it. So rather than selling 24 eggs to customers, we put 24 eggs into an incubator and hatched 20 chickens. And some of them we can already tell that they're male, but basically, there's a 50-50 chance you're going to get male or female. The females we're going to add to our flock so we get more egg layers. And our males we'll actually put into a chicken tractor, which we've already built and have a lot of video footage for that. And we'll get a video edited and posted at some point in the future. But all of our little roosters are going to go into the chicken tractor where they'll be moved every single day, and they'll actually help mow the grass for us. And they'll be moved every day so that they're not sitting in their own filth. We'll have, depending on how many of them turn out to be males, like 8 to 12 males in a 64 square foot area. And every single day they'll be on a new 64 square foot area of fresh grass. And when they're about 12 to 14 weeks old, they'll be big enough to process, and they will be at an age where they won't be too tough, so that you can still have a nice, tender, juicy chicken. So, I mean, for us, again, like if society and the economy collapsed, we could live off of chicken and eggs as long as we have access to water. And we can, even though we do supplement them with a commercial feed, we can definitely get creative, and we can cut down the green things that are growing on their property. They eat weeds and grass and can thrive on that. And they also, they need calcium, to produce eggshells. So you can take your eggshells after you eat eggs, and you can dry them and crush them or grind them into a powder and mix that in with their food, so that you are giving them the calcium back that they laid out in the first place. But grass and greens in general are really high in calcium, so you probably wouldn't have to do that, but it wouldn't be a bad idea either. So the last thing really we want to talk about is like the business side of farming. So like I mentioned earlier that like I do the accounting. Like hiring an accountant is probably not cheap. I've never had to do it, so I wouldn't know. But I've created some really awesome spreadsheets that we actually sell on our website. And if you support us on Patreon, patreon.com/RiggandFarm, if you are a member that pledges $5, you get access to all of our spreadsheets that we've created, so that you're able to keep track of your expenses and your feed and your farm sales. And when I do our farm income taxes, because I keep up with our spreadsheets on, at least once a week, I update everything. It takes me like 2 minutes to do our taxes, because everything lines up exactly with the Schedule F, the farm profit and loss sheet, and it's made that such an easy process. Like, I'm glad I did that. Other things you have to consider pricing. Like, you need to make sure that you're charging enough to where you're paying yourself for your time. Like, our pork is definitely a lot more expensive than what you pay at the grocery store. Like, we're actually, when we got more bacon, like we've sold at a bacon the first 2 weeks that after having starting the market this season. So we're gonna go up in bacon, because this is the last bacon we're gonna have for the year, because we don't have any other pigs that are gonna be ready to process until February. So we're currently selling our bacon for $15 a pound, and we can't keep it in stock. So we're going to probably bump it up to $18 a pound. And even though we're only going to make an extra, maybe $30 for the entire year, I mean, that's $30 that we wouldn't have gotten had we not just, sold our product for what we know it's worth. So you definitely have to find that balance of being competitive, but also making enough money to pay your bills. And sometimes I struggle with that, because you can't compare our products to the grocery store stuff. And I know how much time I spend doing what I do, and I think that our customers love our products and what we do, and they're, not everybody's willing to pay what we charge, but luckily there are a lot of people that are willing to pay for really good quality ingredients.
And they come back.
Absolutely. Like, most of our customers are repeat customers. Another thing is like marketing, social media, your website. YouTube has been a really good marketing tool for us. Like, not even though that wasn't necessarily what we intended to do with it, but we've had customers find us on YouTube, and we post pictures on Facebook and Instagram. We've gotten a lot of customers from that. Like, we had so much attention yesterday at the farmers market for strawberries because I posted on Instagram and Facebook pictures of our strawberries, and people were coming to the market just to look for our strawberries because they saw pictures online. Peach trees, yes, we do plan on actually getting a lot of fruit and nut trees. We have an area cleared. It's probably about an acre or so. So we'll get a couple we're going to get a lot of trees, but we'll probably get a couple of each type so that we have a huge variety. It'll probably be more for us than our customers. Like, we might have an abundance to be able to bring to the market, but it would be more for us just because they're things that we like to eat. And I love apples. Like, I eat them almost every day. So if I'm able to grow our own apples, in knowing that they were farmed ethically, would be huge. But we're also like kind of the apple capital of Georgia. So like there's a lot of competition with apples as it is.
Although there's not at the market.
Right.
So
another thing is, like, we mentioned licenses and inspections. So a couple weeks ago, we had a random inspection from the Department of Agriculture meat compliance. They came and they said, "Hey, someone said you were selling chicken." And I'm like, "No, because we can't sell it because we can't get it processed at a USDA facility." We raise chickens for ourselves. And they're like, "Okay." And like they wanted to look in our freezer, and all they saw was pork, and they saw a USDA label on every single piece of pork. So, you're not safe from inspection. There are a lot of people, like we're actually going to do a video pretty soon, I think, about kind of some of the things to look out for and hidden dangers in the farmers market, because we've seen some kind of shady things from other vendors in farmers markets, and we've heard some stories of people who literally go to the grocery store and buy produce and then bring it to the farmers market and sell it, and charge double what they paid for it. So you can't necessarily trust everybody at the farmers market. So these inspections and things like that are, they're definitely in the best interest of the public, because if we were doing things in an unsanitary way that could make somebody sick, then we should be shut down. Like, we shouldn't be in the business of making people sick. Like, and same reason that restaurants get health inspections. Like, those county offices and state offices, they are, their job is to prevent illness. We would love for you to check out the farm and do a tour as well. Like I said, we're going to have that option when we launch our Kickstarter, and we would like in future years to eventually open up the farm. We mentioned having a farm stand, but we'd like to do like a little petting zoo and have farm days where people can walk the farm, and we would absolutely love that. But if you do pledge and back us on Kickstarter for that farm tour, there's not going to be an expiration on it. So even if it takes you a year after backing us, we'll definitely make good on that promise. And we'll send you the book, so you don't have to wait on that. I'll give you the book when it's released, and then we'll schedule that farm tour for a time that works well for you. We've mentioned a lot about, if you're going to have product, you need to be able to sell it. So you need to think about, where are you going to sell your produce, your meat. Like, we sell at a farmer's market. We started doing a second farmer's market, and it was kind of more to like get, some more reach and try to get more regular customers, because like I said, ultimately we want to be able to sell 100% at a farm stand on our property, so we don't ever have to leave. And the best way to do that is to go to multiple markets and get a huge following, because if we can get 50 people from this market, 20 people from this market, 10 people from this market who want to come to our farm stand once a week to buy meat and eggs and produce, like, we could make enough money to pay all of our bills and have extra if we got to that point, because we wouldn't have to spend all the time away from the farm to set up the farmers, to set up at the farmers market, paying vendor fees, paying gas. Because towing a trailer definitely is less fuel efficient than just driving around or staying home to work the farm stand. The laws are definitely there to protect people, and some of them are ridiculous. But unfortunately, there are a lot of people who don't care about others, and they only care about themselves, and they're just trying to do what they can to make money, and they get people sick or hurt or worse in the process. And just because I have 20 years of restaurant experience and have taken food safety courses over and over again and have gotten 100s on my health inspections when I was running restaurants, not every farmer has the same background as me. Not everybody, like a lot of the farmers grew up on their farm. They're 4th, 5th, 7th generation farmers. They aren't educated, not to be disrespectful, but I'm sure they went to high school, and graduated, but they don't have the same, education and experience that we do. And just because they're really great farmers doesn't know that they really understand food safety and what, makes people sick and what doesn't. So they have to have those systems in place, and they can't give us special treatment just because, they have to treat everybody the exact same way. I know there's a lot of bias and things like that in the world, but if, you're speeding, whether you're 20 or 60 or you have a PhD or you're a high school dropout, if you're speeding, you're going to get a ticket.
But why couldn't they give special treatment, right? So why can't they go to farms and see how your processes are done and give you certification to be able to do that?
They do.
So...
Well, they do, but again, it costs money to have those inspections and get certified, and you have to abide by their laws and rules and regulations. We could process animals on our property to sell them, but we would have to build a facility to do that. So, they do allow it. There's just a process, and there's a lot of money and time involved. Let's see. And then, one of the most important things is when wanting to start a farm or even homestead is how are you going to pay for it all? Are you going to use your savings? Are you going to get a loan? Are you going to use credit cards? We've done all of those things. I guess we did a mortgage, not necessarily a farm loan, but there are a lot of lending options for farmers through the USDA that are relatively low interest. A lot of farm loans, farm operating loans, are you basically take out a loan, and that pays for your seed, your livestock, whatever, and then at the end of the season, you pay back your loan in full, obviously with interest. Because most farms, they're established, and they may need the capital to get through this season, and then once they get their harvest, they'll be able to pay it back. But what we're doing is a lot different, so for us that doesn't work, because we're building a farm, and we're building for self-sufficiency, and we have a lot of expenses, as we mentioned, that are setting us up for the future to where we're not going to have very many expenses, in subsequent years. So it's just, it's an option, but for us it doesn't work. So one of the only ways that we were actually able to start our farm was because of the pandemic. When the pandemic happened and President Trump and all the others that signed all those different laws into place to help people during this global crisis, they allowed people to withdraw their 401ks without paying a penalty, because if you're not retired, you have to pay, I think it was a 25% penalty on the withdrawal of your 401k. So when that was lifted, I took advantage of that, and I withdrew my entire 401k that I had been working on for years. And even though the market had had a pretty significant dip, and if I had waited just a little bit longer, a lot of it would have come back. But I did what I did when I did it, and that gave us the money to put a down payment on our land, and then just have some money to like invest in, getting livestock, working on some things. When we finally were able to move to the farm, we sold the house we were in, and that gave us money to make some improvements to the farm. And we've been we paid off all of our business credit cards when we got our income tax return, but since then we've had expenses and put more money on credit cards. So I mean, we're definitely not in the greatest financial situation, but the lights are on, and we always pay our mortgage on time. There's always food on the table. It helps when you grow it. But yeah, we definitely need some support, and YouTube has helped. We are monetized on YouTube, so we make a little bit of money every month from our YouTube videos, and but primarily, the bulk of our earnings are from what we sell at the farmers market. I mentioned our Patreon earlier, so we do get monthly payments from our Patreon. The people who pledge them there, who benefit from. I mean, there are different tiers on that as well. It's where you can have access to our videos early. I usually post a lot of our videos anywhere between 3 days to a week early before they go public. So even if you only donate a couple dollars a month, you will have access to all our videos early. So that's kind of neat. You can see it before everybody else and comment and everything. And for $5 a month, you have access to all of our documents that I've uploaded, like the sales report and expense report and feed tracking, and when we're gonna have some a few other things on there. And then we have even perks where you can name the next animal that we get. We try to do some fun things, and we're in exchange for some a little bit of financial support. We're not asking for we're not seeking your charity. We're not just begging for money. We really do want to provide something in exchange for anything that we receive. So even if it's just entertainment through YouTube, when the ad plays, we get a fraction of a penny. So it adds up. But it's we try to do a lot of different things to make ends meet, and we're optimistic that it'll be better, definitely by next year, maybe the year after. So I guess really, that concludes our ideas, at least I guess our thoughts on, starting a farm or a homestead. There are a lot of resources out there. You can use us as a resource, mostly on what not to do. But we have been successful with a few things, and we try to share all of our successes, and we humble ourselves and share our failures as well, because we want people to realize how realistically how hard it is to do what we do, and that you need to really respect and appreciate farmers, because it's not easy work, and without a farmer you would starve. Oh, you're very welcome. That's one of the reasons we like doing these live streams, is being able to connect and help, even if there are only 2 people watching right now. We even if we benefit one person by one thing we said, we feel like we've done our job. And because obviously Ashley being in healthcare, she has a great passion for helping others, and even though I haven't done anything as to that caliber, being in customer service, I've always strived to give the best customer service and make all of my customers feel welcome and special, and get not necessarily special treatment, but just treated the way they deserve. Because I think we are good people, and we just try to share the love and make everyone around us happy and healthy with delicious food.
Most importantly.
Yeah. But there are a lot of other resources. There are so many YouTubers out there that we've learned a lot from, and there are lots of great books. Like Ashley's read some really amazing books that have really changed her perspective on gardening, and we've had a lot of successes because of what she's read in those books. Talking to other local farmers, and like Ashley mentioned, trying to find someone to mentor you would be really helpful. Probably before you start investing in starting a farm. When I went to culinary school, something one of my chef instructors said that will always stick with me is before you try to open up your own restaurant and run your own restaurant, learn with somebody else's restaurant, because if you're going to make mistakes, and you will, do it with somebody else's money rather than your own. And I kind of wish I would have done that with the farm thing, but I don't know. Like I was in a pretty rough mental state just from all the stress and everything at work, and I needed a change, and I needed it quickly, and I was willing to do just about anything to get out of what I was doing, and so I don't have any regrets about starting this journey. Definitely would have liked to do things a little bit differently, but that's why we share all of that with you. So hopefully anyone who wants to do this kind of thing can save some time and money by learning from us. USDA is also a really great resource, even though they might have some kind of outdated standards that aren't necessarily in the best interest of the general public. Like, they still have a lot of information, and they can provide some financial support in a lot of different ways. Oh yeah, like, I don't sugarcoat anything. It's like one thing that a lot of people hate about me is that, like, I'm brutally honest. But I feel like if I'm direct and I tell people the good, the bad, the ugly, like, I feel like I'm more trustworthy. Like, when I worked retail when I was a teenager, there was a young woman that worked with me that when she was trying on, like, an outfit, she would always ask me what my opinion was, because she knew that I'd tell her the truth. Like, she'd be like, does this make me look fat? I'm like, I mean, it kind of accentuates your negative qualities, but, and, she appreciated that. But, not everybody likes that kind of feedback, especially if it's unsolicited. So I apologize to the hundreds or thousands of people I've offended or upset in the past. My bad. But, I mean, that's everything. So unless anybody else has any other questions, we're going to go ahead and end this. We've been going at it for 2.5 hours, apparently.
And I need some sleep because farm days start early.
Yeah. Yeah, we really appreciate everybody who watched this, and
anyone who watches it in the future.
Yeah.
Even if you couldn't catch us live, that's okay. We appreciate you sticking through. And
yeah. Oh, I feel bad for anybody who stuck through 2.5 hours of this. All right, thank you so much. You have a good night too. Bye. We'll see you next time.
Bye.